Hey, welcome back to another PHP 2 class video. In our e-commerce app, we're going to step on to number 3 in our Milestone 3. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a form that will allow us to add a new person to our database. So you can see from the details here, we're going to create a new form. We're going to have a form handler. We're going to look at our DAO, which is our database access object, and then we're going to add a business service function, and then finally add it to our navbar menu. So let's go back into Eclipse and figure out where all of this is going to go. So first of all, we're going to be modifying the user business service and the user data service. Those are the database access tools. We're going to add a new form, so that's going to go into the views area. And then of course our navbar is going to need a menu item. Let's start with the views. Inside of views, I'm going to create a new file. So let's name the file as a new user form. So in every case here, we're going to use the includes to be able to add our header. So the header includes the session start, and it includes the CSS formatting from Bootstrap. Now the majority of this file will just be in regular old HTML. So let's stop using the PHP with a question mark bracket, and then let's add the form here. So let's first of all tell it what we're going to do. Okay, so now in our form we're going to add a bunch of items to add the username and password. Now before you start making a form, you should probably go look at the database and see what the fields are in the columns. So we have first name, last name, username, role, and password. Now since I've already started you on the path to Bootstrap, let's go see how they would recommend you format a form. And so I'm at the website and I'm choosing components and then forms. So they have lots of options for forms, and we can just copy and paste their code. So you can see in their example, they follow a format where they add a class called form group, and then the formatting will become very responsive to whatever screen size you're working with. What I'm looking for is the simplest example of a form. So about halfway down the page, I come to something called form groups, and this is a great way to organize your form. So you can see you can have items side by side, or you can have them in a full grid like this. So I'm scrolling up here, and I'm going to take the simplest one that has 2 text inputs. And so I'm going to copy that and use that as my starting point. So let's see, I don't need those. I can delete and paste. So the form is going to, first of all, need an action. And that is going to become the next phase of our videos. So the action is going to be a handler inside of this folder here. So we're going to go up one folder and then come into handlers. So let's go double dot and handlers. And we'll call this thing process new user .php, and then we'll rename all these things in here. Okay, so I'm just going to separate these so you can see that each of these sections is about one single input. So first of all we have the label, and then we're going to change that to first name. And let's see, the actual input itself is listed here. It's type text, and let's give it as an ID as first name as well. Now in PHP you actually have to have the name listed as part of the form control. So I'm going to add in here name equals first name as well. And then the item up here, the label, is going to be for first name. So a few changes that you have to make. And let's see, we're going to move on pretty soon here. Now, that's the example. Let's move on and replace this with first name, last name, and username, and the rest of them. So I'm just going to delete the second one and use this first one now as a model. And let's save this and check it out, see what it looks like in our browser. So I have to go and manually navigate this. So this was at presentation and views, and I think it was called new user form.php. There it is. So create a new user account, and you can see the first name is listed here. That looks like it'll work pretty well. We could do some more CSS formatting, but that'll get us started. So let's check out the database again. So I'm going to have first name, last name, username, role, and password. So let's see, I'm going to copy this and paste it. So let's see, that could be last name, that could be the username, role, and password. So let's rename all these. Okay, so you can see I've retyped everything. I'm going to push the save button, come back here and refresh. Alright, so we got a basic form. We need a submit button, and then we can go on and program the background. So, since I need a button, I'm going back and see if there's any formatting that I can do with buttons. So I'm on the website where the buttons are. As you can see here, the standard colors are listed on the buttons here. I'm going to use primary, and so let's just copy the button primary, and we'll follow all these classes just by the defaults they provide. So I paste in my button. Now instead of the button being primary, I'll just put an OK down here. And the type, instead of being type button, we need to add it as type submit, because that's what is handled on forms. Now if you want to change the color, you can change from button primary to something else. So you can see that there's secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light, and dark. And those are all the options up here. So it's up to you of which you like to use. Let's save the changes, and I'm going to refresh the page. And there's my OK button. Now you might wonder why everything is pushed to the edges so tightly here. And so there's an option that we can ask Bootstrap to help us out with on this too. So let's go and take a look at the Bootstrap documentation, and I am choosing layouts this time, and I want to see what they have here. So first of all, the very first item that you're supposed to know about is called containers. And so we can just put the default class of a container around our form, and it'll automatically start to look good. So let's see, I'm going to paste in here the very first line that says class container, and then of course at the end, after form, you have to close off the div. Let's go back and refresh our page, and now you can see it's giving some margins. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so there's the form. Now I'm going to leave you with a challenge here. If I have a role as item number 1 through 4, instead of typing in a number there, shouldn't we have a drop-down menu? So let's return back into the forms documentation. And sure enough, there is something called a select. So you can see that there's a select item, and if you want to use select, you can change that from our text input to something that looks like this here. And instead of using the role as a text input, I'm going to delete that, and we'll change it to the select control. So we need to add a couple of things here. Specifically, the name has to be the role, so that way that the form is processed properly. And let's see, in my data dictionary I only have 4 different roles chosen, so I'll delete the last. Let's save it and try it again. Okay, so now my role is a number that I select. Okay, so I've got John Smith filled in, and click OK. Now you can see that the next phase is going to become this handler. We have to create this file and then process the input. You can see the get values are listed up here, so John and Smith, and the username is all there, so it just needs to be done with some handling in the background. So we'll do that next.